Francois Poirier joined TC Energy in 2014 as president of the Energy East pipeline. He was appointed to the position of president and chief executive officer in January of 2021, not the easiest time to take it over. In his previous role as chief operating officer and president, power and storage, he was responsible for successfully executing the acquisition of the Columbia Pipeline Group in 2016. Francois held other roles as well, which included leading the organization's Mexico business unit, as well as leading the company's risk management, strategy, and corporate development efforts. Before joining TC Energy, Francois spent 25 years in investment banking, consulting, and as a corporate director. He was president and head investment banking and capital markets for Wells Fargo Securities Canada Limited. And prior to that, he was group head, power and pipelines investment banking at JP Morgan Securities in New York. From 2007 to 2011, Francois served as an independent director of Capital Power Income LP. And his community involvement has included serving as chair of the North York Harvest Food Bank. Francois, welcome to Canada 360.
Thank you, Perrin. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, let's get right to it. Let's focus particularly on the issue of climate change. I want to start with the fact that in October last year, TC Energy set targets to achieve zero emissions from operations on a net basis by 2050. This isn't an easy target to achieve, but it's an important one. And I know that other companies are going to be interested in how you got to this commitment. Can you describe the process that you undertook to set climate targets and a roadmap to get there? And what did you learn in this process?
We learned a great deal, Perrin, but perhaps I'll start with the why and what motivated us to go down this path. As you know, we are one of the largest transporters of various forms of energy in North America. For example, we transport approximately 25% of the natural gas molecules in the entirety of North America. So it would stand to reason, given that sustainability is foundational to our values, that we would feel a very strong obligation to establish some climate targets as a responsible member of the North American economy. So we certainly weren't the first among our peers to do that. But we decided that rather than pursuing an aspirational goal, that we would take a little bit of extra time and be very thoughtful, very data-driven, and very focused on measurable targets that we could achieve. We would identify specific strategies that will enable us to get there and establish some clear benchmarks against which we would measure our progress against our interim targets as well as our long-term targets.
So this is not public relations. These are genuine targets that you've set that stretch you, but you are confident are achievable as well.
Yes. So, we, informing our team to establish these targets, we drew from experts across the organization, including technical and engineering experts, commercial people, regulatory people, finance people, to draw from and pull together an actionable plan. And we did actually cost out the plan and ground it in fundamentals that will allow us to commercially underpin those investments. So, from our perspective, it was very important for our climate goals and our sustainability focus to align with the corporate strategy of the company. So this effort was done as part of the preparation of our 5-year strategic plan for the entire corporation.
So it's an intensive exercise. It's one where there's very broad participation and where you want to align it with the other goals for the company as well.
Yes, very much so. And so, as we thought about the rollout of the plan, of course, communication is so important. We have a number of critical stakeholders. We spent a great deal of time educating our board as we went along the development of the plan. Our employees, of course, spent a great deal of time with policymakers, and of course, our shareholders are very important stakeholders as part of the company. So from my perspective as CEO, the process itself was as rewarding as the result, if you will. And it's because it afforded us an opportunity to adapt and revise our corporate vision, our purpose, and our strategy to align the organization around embedding sustainability within the strategy for the company. So it was very rewarding from that perspective, and we learned a great deal.
So you're really talking about the culture of the company here and changing it when you talk about embedding this into the strategy of the company. It's not a quick process. It's one which is intensive and which involves an enormous amount of outreach and participation. Is that critical for any company that is looking at this sort of an exercise?
Oh, very much so. If you were to ask me, what are the critical characteristics of a company that will thrive, in the process of energy transition, clearly a culture of innovation is going to be a critical factor in doing that. I see, innovation being embedded in the values of an organization being quite essential. In fact, in 2021, we went through the deliberate exercise with quite a bit of engagement from our employee base to add innovation as a fifth corporate value, in addition to our values of safety, integrity, responsibility, and collaboration, because we felt creating a culture where you're encouraged to challenge norms and where failure is actually a valuable part of the innovation process is something that our employees were comfortable with.
We're into the era of ESG, and where companies are expected to see their role in society and the economy as much more than simply making a return for their shareholders. I think there's a good deal of skepticism out in the public about, well, is this PR on the part of companies, or is it something they truly believe in? And even within the business community, you'll have a debate between those who believe this is essential to success and those who believe that we're simply adding costs here. You clearly fall on the side of those who believe that embedding these values in the culture of the organization is critical to your future success.
Very much so, Perrin. And I would say one of the key learnings from the process we undertook is that we will need to allocate a fair amount of capital to invest in reducing our emissions in order to achieve our climate goals. And so not only is adapting those strategies inherent in our sustainability principles, but it will drive growth in our company for a very long time. So it is not incongruent to have economic growth and a sustainability strategy. From our perspective, as an infrastructure developer and owner, they are very much aligned.
Now, your company deals with an enormous range of challenges. You are constantly having to justify activities to the public, to government, to regulators, and to others. There are climate challenges which are critical for your sector. Businesses also face technical, leadership, regulatory obstacles. What do you feel will be the most important looking forward to the business landscape over the course of the next 10 years?
That's a great question. And I think it's true that there will be technical challenges and regulatory challenges as well. From a technical standpoint, in order for energy transition to be successful, we need to make all forms of energy reliable and affordable and with minimal greenhouse gas emissions. And that is a significant technological challenge. We also need regulation to catch up to policy. From our perspective, it's the private sector's job to help governments operationalize the policies that they've implemented. And I certainly see some regulatory obstacles that we'll have to overcome. But far and away from my perspective, I see strong leadership as the most important catalyst to us as a company and us as a country achieving our climate goals. And the reason for that is multifaceted. Whereas the destination we are all working towards is well defined, net zero, the pace and direction energy transition will take to get there is far from certain. So for a company like TC Energy, who allocates capital on a multi-decade basis, how do you plan and how do you make decisions in the face of such uncertainty? And so from my perspective, that's a question of leadership. We need to create an agile organization with a culture, as we've talked about, of innovation and collaboration and being solution-driven. We need to anticipate what capabilities we'll need as an organization to thrive in the future and develop those capabilities. And by the way, those capabilities may be different from the ones that have made you the successful organization you are today. So that brings very interesting aspects around talent management, for example. And perhaps the third thing I'd add around leadership is we need to be more front-footed in driving technological change as a company. Whereas historically, we have been what I would call a fast follower on new technologies. And we are, because of the breadth of our footprint and our low cost of capital, we are ideally suited to implement innovation and new technologies once they've become mature on a broad scale in a very efficient manner. But in my opinion, we as a company and all companies need to lead new investment in some areas to understand their potential, because we are uniquely positioned to accelerate their deployment. And it's leadership in providing the right culture, providing the right capabilities, and being willing to invest capital in and advancing our knowledge that will make us successful as an organization and as a country.
So success then depends upon corporate leadership, the ability of the company to be in the vanguard, but also personal leadership on the part of the leaders of the organization itself.
Yes, yes, very much so.
Well, you've taken on a heavy responsibility. You've set high goals for yourself and for TC Energy. Thank you so much for sharing those with us today, and good luck as these roll out.
Thank you, Farron. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.